Hey everybody, welcome to the Single Tracks podcast. My name is Jeff, and today my guests are Aaron and Emily Kerson. Aaron and Emily founded PNW Components in 2015. The customer-focused brand is known for offering quality components like dropper posts, handlebars, and now clothing at affordable prices. Thanks for joining me, Aaron and Emily.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
So, Aaron, I want to start with you. You had a lot of experience in the bike industry and also e-commerce before starting PNW. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I mean, it started with bike racing. I started racing BMX when I was like 8 years old. And that then progressed into, this is a weird connection. So it was a friend's older brother left his bike at my house. And it was a 24-inch wheel rock hopper at the time. This was like, I don't know, 1995. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, I don't have a way to get it back to my parents' house. Like, feel free to ride it. So anyway, so I completely got hooked. That was when I was like, around 10 or 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, something about it. It just totally hooked me. It gave me a sense of freedom and I could go explore. I had really bad asthma as a kid. So like playing sports was always really hard for me, but something about biking, I was able to make it work and kind of became obsessed. So that's how it started. Got into downhill racing and dirt jumping and free ride and all that stuff. And working at shops to basically fund my addiction of, wanting to get shop deals on bikes and parts. And that was my whole life. I mean, that's where all my friends came from. That's all we did was we would watch like New World Disorder videos and Cranked and I'm probably figuring a ton of them. And then we would go out and ride and then we'd go back and watch more videos. So anyway, that then progressed into, getting into like the elite levels of racing, trying to find sponsors. I was never focused on fitness. So like I had the skills, but I never was willing to like go to the gym or do anything like that, ride cross country. So it held me back and it kind of was what it was. But, so kind of fast forwarding, through college, I raced and it started to occur to me, hey, and, I broke my back, at one point, which was really a wake up call of just like, this is a pretty gnarly sport that's not probably going to support you ever. So you may need to do something else. So coincidentally, at the time, I really got into my business studies at school, got an internship with it was called an angel investment firm. So kind of like very, very early stage venture capital, and just got immersed in that whole world while still riding and doing all that. So I was kind of living this dual life of loving business and learning about it and then writing still. So anyway, was able to get a job at Specialized as a product developer. And that was an absolute dream. I remember getting a call where they said, hey, you're accepted for this position. I started yelling. It was just like that was my brand. I had owned 17 of those over the years, just through working at shops and basically I'd buy a bike at the beginning of the season and then sell it, before the end of that season and get my money back and then buy the next one. So it was really exciting. That was a really, really exciting time. Getting into that company was unreal.
I still remember that call when he called me and got the job at Specialized. It was like elation.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was just, it's like you get to enter the heart of the beast, and really see how this is going. And that was a crazy experience. I mean, just the R&D capabilities they have in-house. It really was truly unbelievable. Seeing this.
What year was that?
So that was 2011.
Okay.
So, we're making, well, not me, I can't really do shit, but press keys, but like people were making bikes out of clay and like these beauty, and then painting them in the paint booth and, you're doing all types of cool stuff. So anyway, that was amazing. The key there was being immersed into the world of manufacturing. So like within my first month of being there, I got put on a plane, flew to Taiwan, got to tour factories and make the connections with the factories and understand how the pricing negotiation meetings work, which are it's a world of, it's an art. Seeing like the best at negotiating on both sides of the table. It's truly an art. It was really cool to see that and learn from it. And anyway, fast forwarding from there, ended up at Marin Bikes as the product manager for all their mountain bikes. And that was in 2014 that I was there, or that I started there. And Yeah. What else happened? I mean, we had kind of we had some, that was a while ago, but yeah.
It's all blurred.
It's all a blur, but
we blacked out and now we're here.
We definitely blacked out and showed up here. But yeah, we, through a kind of a family health issue, we ended up moving up to Seattle. I couldn't travel anymore, traveling, 30 to 40% of the year doing those development jobs, specialize in Marin. Couldn't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So I ended up at Amazon of all places, which I have zero tech experience. I'm actually bordering on like Luddite. So it was like the world of product management totally made sense. It's exactly the same. Mm-hmm. But the world of like being able to communicate technical requirements in the same way, like I don't have the same proficiency as I do with bike stuff with tech, right? So that was a major learning curve. But the 2 years I was there, learned all things e-commerce, learned how like search ranking algorithms work, meaning, how do you get a product to be successful when people are searching for it online? That was very cool. Got to observe and actually work with like the top 10% brands on Amazon. So, brands are doing like hundreds of millions in sales on Amazon. Like, what is their strategy? How are they making Amazon and other online sales channels work for them? Mm-hmm. And yeah, just getting a total deep dive in that. That was a really cool experience, and was absolutely craving being in an industry where I gave a shit about what I was working on, and B, actually knew a lot about it and really cared about it. So wanted to get back connected with bikes. And so that kind of, but I'm sure we'll talk about how we got started, but that is, I guess we'll leave things there. So that was a bit of my background.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's quite a career that you had before starting PNW. Emily, you worked in the bike industry as well prior to PNW. And I think I read on the website you worked in a local bike shop and then later at Marin. How did that prepare you for starting this new brand?
Oh, yeah. Interesting preparation for sure. I will have to have the caveat. When I met Aaron, I was ripping around on my road bike on the Seattle streets, and he was like, "That's cool." And I think he was excited to see bikes in my house, but he was like, "You need to go on a trail." And I was like, kind of like, "That's cool, but you need to change." No, I really seriously though, I caught the mountain biking bug very quickly. But yeah, I worked at Marin as in marketing. I also worked at a bike shop before then, which I think bike shop experience is the number one thing that everyone should have in this industry. It's where you learn a lot about your customers, and it's just fun times.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it laid a lot of the bricks for what we're doing now. I would say in many ways that that time was more illuminated a lot of the things we do now more than even my jobs at bike companies or working in e-commerce, because at the same time I was working at Marin, I was also doing freelance graphic design and photography, and then did that for a while for brands and with the e-commerce background, because I've done a lot of studying of that kind of on my own. So
okay, yeah. Are you from the Pacific Northwest? Were you in Seattle before?
I am. Yes, I am the Pacific Northwest native, and I had no idea the riding was so good here until we came back, actually. So I had lived in California for a while, and that's where I learned how to mountain bike in Santa Cruz, which still has my heart as one of the best places in the world to do that. But then we came back, and then I learned all about the trail system here, which is just amazing. But I think that's kind of ironic that I didn't know that at the time.
You're in a Mecca, you know that, right? What?
Yeah. And then, it's the brand sort of, it pays tribute to the Pacific Northwest too. What's the connection? Why choose to base the brand around that? What does that mean for you guys?
I think it meant a lot for us. It was discovering, I think I had been riding in Aaron's wheel tracks, as they say in California. And it was all, stuff he had ridden, all that. And then when we got up to Seattle, my dad was actually in the hospital. We were dealing with all this stuff, and we kind of would just go on the weekends and ride together. And it was this moment of pure therapy, because really when you're riding pretty intense technical stuff, you don't have time to think about anything else. And we were under quite a bit of stress. And so I think that connection that was when, we formed this connection with mountain biking that of course he already had. But I think the area brings a lot of like memories to our relationship. And then also like, getting through a hard time together. So I think that's kind of why we named it the name that it now has.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and there's obvious ones too. I mean, the terrain here and just the weather is pretty nasty. So the fact like using this as a testing ground for product is great. Like you're going to get the grossest of the gross, right? It's everything from snow to mud to, snow and mud, a lot of that. So it's kind of a great spot for that, for testing. But that was one thing that actually made product development of bicycle, complete bikes kind of challenging being in a place like California. And I won't say it's impossible. It's not, but it makes it a little bit more challenging when the weather's pretty dialed like every day. It's tough because you get a lot of these kind of fringe cases like in the UK or up in Alaska, and you can't really relate sometimes because that's not the weather you're testing this stuff in. So being here, it's perfect for it. It's totally perfect for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Aaron, you worked at a number of like really big companies. I mean, Specialized, probably the biggest bike brand there is, if not top 5 at least, and Amazon as well. And I imagine you observed like, I don't know, some frustrations or challenges or like inefficiencies maybe. Like what were you seeing at those brands that made you think like maybe there's an opportunity to start your own company?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was more around company culture. And now that we have, we were explaining before the call, there's 28 of us now, which is crazy, but it's more setting up. I'll get back to kind of where you were going with that. But I think that has been huge for us. Is I remember the feeling of just being totally kind of feeling anonymous and replaceable in a lot of these places. And that's not a feeling that I particularly enjoy. And so I think that's one area that we definitely want to focus on, with our customers, and obviously with our employees too, is just making sure like you're empowered to make decisions, you're heard when you have things to say, and just kind of a mutual respect. Not to say those other places don't respect you. That's not true. It's just they're huge, right? Like trying to get anything done, like talking Amazon, for instance, like it literally felt like you're in a company made out of like 200 other little companies, because each department is just so kind of doing their own thing, and you have to go lobby with them just to get access to their code or whatever it may be. Like it's not as simple as you would expect. And to me, God, that felt like very entrepreneurial, and like I just want to go get things done, and I want to get them done fast, and that drove me crazy. It was just like, are you kidding me? I have to schedule a meeting out with you 3 weeks from now just to discuss whether we can like get a conversation started. Like, no, I just want to get it done. Yeah. So that was big. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like kind of where PNW fits in the scheme of things, it's not really inefficiencies as much as just very different business models, right? So like, let's say you're a bike company. Especially rewinding, let's say 10 years before brands like Canyon or YT or Commensol have really blown up as direct-to-consumer brands. Like you're a B2B company. Your customer really is your shops, right? Like that's your customer. Mm-hmm. The riders that are buying them obviously are extremely important, but you have there's like a disconnect between them. So like getting immediate product feedback is really hard. And I would travel all over the world visiting shops and talking to riders because it was challenging, but also really important to know what the feedback is on the bikes. And then the problem is, let's say you launch a bike. It takes, let's say 18 months to get that bike into the market. By the time it's hitting the market, you have already like finished and already placed orders for the next version of it the following model year. And what if that product kind of sucks? Like you're stuck with a whole other generation of them. Like it's really hard to react quickly. So that was something Emily and I were like, when we were noodling through how we wanted to set this business up, that was huge, is we wanted immediate feedback from customers and then the ability to immediately do something about it. Like that was big. So that goes back to having direct relationships with all of our customers, whether it's dealers or riders, but then it's also the factories that we work with. Like we need partners who understand that we are agile and we have to be agile, and that's a competitive advantage for us. And that's not every factory. So that's also something important that we have always had in mind when we're out there trying to figure this stuff out.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because there's nothing wrong with the B2B model. I
No.
just think for Aaron and I and our personalities, like I'm a bit of a data nerd when it comes to marketing. And I know data sounds like very scary. And I'm not talking about like creepy experiments, but in the way that data is your customer, like your customer is telling you stuff through these metrics. And I always really liked that when you don't have a direct, like kind of connection to your sales, you kind of lose that ability to connect with your customers on kind of that wide scale and get this idea of who your customer is. Because I think a lot of times when you're doing these one-off shop visits, you get the loudest customer and they're important, but you kind of get a better snapshot. And that's not to say that IBDs are not important. They're incredibly important, but I think it's good to weave both into your business for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think the bike industry was kind of slow to adapt to this new like idea of working closer with your customers and like kind of eliminating layers and things in between you and the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny because when we were getting started, we were really looking at almost like, well, how do I say it? Like in a very disciplined way, we were making sure that we were taking inspiration from outside the bike industry just to ensure we were doing something different. So we were looking at, what was hot in e-commerce at the time. So, looking at brands like Warby Parker, looking at brands like, whatever, Allbirds shoes, or on the cosmetic side, Glossier Cosmetics, Everlane Clothing. Like these are the brands that we were looking at because they were really, I hate this word, but, disrupting their industries. And we wanted to have that same impact in cycling because we knew that like from a customer standpoint, all of our needs weren't really necessarily being met in the way that we would have wanted. And we wanted to change that. And the biggest piece, I think, is on the customer service side. I've found that the B2B model inherently makes that more challenging. Again, not impossible, but it is more challenging to serve your customers directly because you have layers kind of in the way of that. So it's just a different model. But for us, having that direct connection and being able to service people directly is super, super, super important. It makes us feel good at night, but also it's the right thing to do. And you gain a ton of information very quickly by doing it that way.
Yeah. Well, obviously with bikes, there's tons of products, everything from complete bikes to components, accessories, clothing. Emily, how did you decide like which product or products to start with in the beginning?
That's a question better geared towards Aaron because it had to do with kind of projects that he had already been involved with at Specialized. And that's a huge reason why we picked the dropper post.
Okay.
It also happened to be a really good product for us because it's something that the customers need a lot of help with. And so we got to have sizing and just because of the nature of, I think nothing else on the bike except maybe a fork gets as much kind of constant use in that kind of way. So it's a object that fails sometimes and you have to figure out why. And then it's an opportunity to really support your customer because at the time when we, came out with dropper posts, a lot of options were exorbitantly expensive and a lot of ones were just frankly not working. Like, I think we all had experiences with that. Now the options are much better, but back then it was a really, really golden product for us to really connect with our customer and give customers a good experience. But Aaron can speak more to why
the dropper. From a personal standpoint, I think it's such a cool invention. I remember the first time my friend Pat showed up, he had I think KS was one of the first brands to bring one out and he had one on his bike. I was just blown away. I was like, this is so cool. So I couldn't afford one at the time when I was working at a shop, but over time finally got one. And they're awesome. They're a game changer, especially for gravity style riding like I was doing. It's a real pain when you're doing undulating hills and you're constantly stopping and lowering your seat and then raising your seat. And, it's a pain, right? So there's personal interest. And I also knew, I began development of a low cost, reliable dropper when I was at Specialized that we wanted for OEM use. And I knew the factory that helped us bring that to market. I knew how dialed they were. I had a great relationship with them. So that's how it got started. We wanted to bring that to market, create a brand fully focused on droppers at the time. and get the fun part was getting them to agree to work with us. So that took 5 attempts. And I'm very,
oh, wow.
I was dead set on this happening. I'm very tenacious and / annoying as a person. So I just didn't leave him alone. I was just like, no, you don't get it, man. We have a really cool idea for how this is going to work. And I'm telling you, this is low risk for you. No, we're good. And I'm like, no, I don't think you get it. So I had to keep blowing them up. So yeah, it took 5 times, but they did come around, fortunately, and they've been a huge reason for our success. I mean, them taking a chance on us, somewhat unheard of, and also I'm extremely happy they did because we wouldn't be here without them and their support in the early days. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Did it feel risky at the time? I mean,
yeah, it was terrifying.
For me, thinking about a dropper post, like that, it's a complicated thing. Like you said, a lot of them at the time had problems and it seemed like a really complicated product. Were you worried about that or concerned? It sounds like you were pretty confident.
Yeah. I mean, when you're doing something like this, it's, it feels a lot like when you're, thinking back to like hitting dirt jumps, right? Like you put the risk to the side for some reason. I can't explain why, but you're just kind of like convinced you can do this. And if you crash, yeah, that sucks. But like, that's not really what's crossing your mind. It's just like, okay, I have to do this, which now as I'm getting older, I'm like, no, I really didn't need to do any of that. But yeah, that's how you feel when you're in your 20s. But anyway, with droppers, yeah, it was terrifying. We tapped into our savings, which we didn't have very much. And this was like most of our savings because they hit us. That was kind of their way. It was just like, okay, fine, we'll work with you. But guess what? We have minimum order quantities. So I think they're expecting that to deter us again. But again, I was just like dead set on this happening. So we ponied up the cash and yeah, it was super scary. My thought was like, okay, if this totally fails, like I'm sure we could move these somehow, which I know is not very scientific, but that was my thinking. So
that all sounds really irrational, but I think there was a rational part in his brain where he knew the technology behind the dropper post that we wanted to bring to market in this style. And he knew that it would serve customers better because it just inherently, you can service it yourself. The cartridge is super friendly, super reliable. So there was some rationality.
No, there's definitely rationale. I mean, I guess I'm kind of explaining the mindset of like, yeah, it was terrifying, but for some reason that felt more comfortable than me working for other people, if that makes sense. Like, having
the lesser of two evils.
Right. It's like, if I'm going to totally blow it, I want it to be my fault, not because of like corporate downsizing, like that was always really scary to me. Is just like, what if I come into work and then I'm laid off? Like that would suck. And I don't want to deal with that. It's like, I'd rather take this risk and see how it goes. And at least I know if I blow it, it's my fault, So for some reason that felt really comforting.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned kind of starting out with this set of designs or ideas of like what the dropper post would look like. Who does the product design and development these days? Yeah,
so we've got an incredible team. I'm still kind of like, you're in it day to day, so you sort of normalize it, but our team's really, really, really good. So we have our product team is our project manager who's keeping all these details together is his name's TJ Trotter. He's been with us. He was one of our first employees. So he's been with us. He started out in customer service and sales, and now he's in product. We have like 20 products in development at any given time, and keeping all those details together, especially during COVID, is really hard. So he's been doing a fantastic job of just owning all of that. We have our product manager is Todd Ford, and Todd was doing product development and product management at Cannondale. He then backfilled, when I left Specialized, he backfilled my position there as a developer, worked his way up. And then he ended up at Santa Cruz for the last few years as a product manager of some of their mountain and gravel bikes. Really well regarded in the industry, incredible person, incredible rider. So he's our product manager. And then on the design side, we have Adam Hammerman. He and I worked together at Specialized. He was there about 7.5 years. So he's an industrial designer. He's our director of product design. He's based out of Switzerland. And then on the engineering side, we work with a guy named Joey, who coincidentally used to work with Todd. And Adam and he have become good buddies now that we're just through PNW. So Joey's based in Taiwan. He's an American guy, but he's been living there for over a decade. The guy's dialed. So Yeah, we have a kind of a dream team on product. And then on the graphic side, we've got, we have Emily, we have Katie, we have Alex, on the product, like packaging and product graphics side of things too. So yeah, it's a pretty cool team.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And I mean, I guess too, as you've grown, you've been able to bring that stuff in-house. I mean, early on though, did you have like a technical person that was helping with designs, or do the factories provide that kind of service, or like, how do you get started in something like that?
Yeah. So it totally depends. So very, very early days was me, kind of doing everything. So yeah, I would lean heavily, basically pitch ideas to factories. This was a cool thing that I learned while working for these bike brands is, well, the factories that we're working with have extremely talented engineering folks on staff. They have all the in-house testing equipment, which usually you have to outsource that, which is really expensive. So they're able to do their own testing in-house to make sure this stuff's passing like ISO and CE and all these different things. So yeah, I would, work with them to bring things to market. I then, like for instance, with our grip, that was one where we use like an existing core and clamp and then build our own grip over it. And so that was something where I contracted with a freelancer industrial designer to build that out. But then we got to a point where we're like, okay, if we're really, going to own our own destiny and really take things to the next level, we have to bring this all in house. And so that's when we flipped the switch on that a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an interesting way. I mean, by leveraging in-house resources with a factory, for instance, like you're able to save a tremendous amount in expense that I don't think the customer really values from necessarily. Depends on what it is. But like for us to go out and start developing like the bolts and different things that there's not really any advantage to the customer, yet they're going to be paying a premium just for that. Like that doesn't sit right with me. Where we're at in the market, like we're really focused on value. If you're doing like crazy high-end stuff and with titanium bolts, sure, like make them yourself. That totally makes sense. But where we're at is, we're trying to, again, provide really a very strong value to riders, focus on reliability. And that's where our factories who are making the things, guess what? They're the experts in it. So why would you not listen to them? That's been really helpful.
Yeah. So as we talked about, PNW started as a direct-to-consumer brand, which was kind of unusual at the time. And now as you're growing, are you finding that like local bike shops and some of these brick and mortar retailers are more important for you as the brand grows? And what about like OE sales? Is that something that's makes sense as you get bigger?
Yeah. So starting with retailers. So yeah, I mean, let me guys kind of define how we view ourselves, I guess. We're digitally native, but we're not direct to consumer only. That was something we embraced early on because we knew that, using ourselves as an example, if I'm going to go research a product, I go online, right? Like that's where the information should be. And I knew that, again, like working at a place like Amazon, I knew that there's a lot of us who do that. I could argue the majority of us are doing that. Yet I saw a massive disconnect of like, but why aren't a lot of bike brands embracing that? Like there seems like a mismatch here. And why don't we go all in with being digital first and see how this goes? So that was, I got to say, I mean, Emily influenced that one heavily of just like, no, we got to do this all, online marketing, a big emphasis on our social presence, really embracing online advertising and working with media partners and YouTubers and all these things. That was, I'm speaking for you, but that was a big influence that you had. So from there, basically, there's always going to be, a few things. There's always going to be some customers who want to go touch and feel a product. Shops are also incredible at what they do, right? Like they are informing customers on what they should be buying. And especially with something like a dropper where like there's a million sizes, and how the heck would you know what you're supposed to put on your bike based on your personal dimensions combined with your bike sizing? Like that's a lot to figure out.
Right.
Shops do great at that. And then as we expand into other components, we've really embraced color and things like that. So we have, stuff that displays well in shops. They're a major part of our business model. So that's been really fun working with them and growing that. Like our results through IBDs, it has been really incredible. I mean, we have, I think, over 1,800 shops now, and they've all been inbound signups.
Oh, wow.
So that's crazy. Really, really, really crazy. And I think that the way that we went about things is kind of interesting. We, instead of as a new brand going out and hiring a big outside sales team or working with a distributor who's trying to push product into a shop when they're like, dude, I've got 1 million droppers. Why do like, no more brands. We then did the opposite, where we went out and basically, attracted riders who then wanted our products. They then go into the shop and request our products specifically. The shop then signs up with us, and then that's how we kick things off. So it's kind of a sort of push. It's more of a pull strategy.
Yeah.
And that has worked really well for us. So that's, again, not saying one model is better than the other. It's just different. And I think that is why it's worked. Is it's kind of, we think about it a little bit differently than other companies.
Yeah. This is a great position to be in. I mean, did you think though, from the beginning that would ever happen? Like that would be possible?
No, no, I didn't. I was excited to get into for instance, the shops I was working at growing up, okay, those, sure. They're going to take some stuff in. So I guess you could say, okay, fine. I did some outreach in the early days to 3 or 4 shops. But no, I had no idea things were going to take off like this with IBDs. Mm-hmm. And I think a big piece also for why we kind of maintain these relationships, it's not just like a one and done thing, is we're treating the shop exactly the same as we treat our customers. So if they're having a problem, we, for lack of a better phrase, bend over backwards to make sure making things right. Cause I remember working in shops, you have a customer come in, they're like, hey, this part that I have on my bike's broken. Okay, cool. No, no worries. We'll contact them for a warranty support. And then the brand is not willing to support you. You as the shop, you're caught in the middle. You didn't cause this problem, and you're trying to make things better, and then you're getting jerked around. That's a horrible feeling as a shop employee when you're on the floor, just kind of deer in the headlights. Hey, customer, I'm really sorry. We're not going to be able to get your fork warranted. Sorry. You get yelled at, and that's never a good thing. So that's not that's not how we go about things. And I think that's really been helpful, is kind of because we've lived it firsthand, we really understand the struggles shops are going through, and we've catered our program around that.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Emily? What's your customer service philosophy? Do you think the customer's always right?
Oh, that's such an interesting term. I remember hearing that when I was younger and working at places in hospitality about the customer's always right. And I think that term, as an employee, is kind of hostile to hear, because then you're like, okay, well, where do I fit into that equation? And for our employees, our customer service team they're the most empathetic people. And a lot of us have worked in customer service at some point during our time at this company. We were talking about TJ earlier, who's now in product. He started in customer service. Most of us started in customer service, especially in the early crew. So instead of the customer is always right, the goal for our customer service is the customer will always be happy at the end instead of always right. And that just puts it more as a relationship between, the rider and our customer service agent, which sounds very corporate, but yeah, I think that's kind of our goal. I mean, bikes are so much fun, but they can be so frustrating to work on. And when they're not working right, I mean, it's your tool for escape. It's your tool for having happiness in your life. So I think when, a dropper fails or something isn't working right when you're installing it, or just freaking internal cable routing is the worst task that you can have. And it's all to do this fun activity. So I think we come with that empathy of things can go wrong, and it absolutely sucks when it has to do with your bike. So it's just trying to get the best solution possible so they can get out and ride again. And I mean, that sounds like a bunch of poppycock bullshit, but it's really true. We just want people to enjoy their bike ride, and we don't want our products to keep them from doing that. So that's the main goal. That's our customer service philosophy.
Totally.
Go do your bike.
I mean, even things if we're interviewing someone for customer service, the scenario we always throw out is one that we've all lived firsthand and also had customers write in about, is hey, I've got 1 day a week or even a month that I get to go out and ride because I've got a busy life, whatever, I've got a family, whatever it may be. And, your dropper stopped working and I'm really pissed off, and then how would you work with that customer on that? And it's kind of hearing the responses really helps guide our decision, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like that's a really good example of just like, well, God, I would first start off by saying like, God, I'm really sorry. That would piss me off as well. I totally get your frustration. Like let me see what I can do to help you out. Like that's a great way to think about it. And with that, we support our products with a lifetime warranty. Yeah. And the reason for that is like, we got to a point where we had enough data to understand how our products work over, a long period of time. Basically, like if they're going to fail, it's going to happen quick. And otherwise, like, there's consumables that wear out, but like in terms of craftsmanship, like, yeah, it's pretty obvious very quickly whether this thing's going to work long term or not. And so we have confidence that, we've got great products, great support from our factories to help us do these things. And we wanted to like really live how do I say this? Like in order to really embrace being a customer centric company, like we viewed lifetime warranty as that kind of final step of just like really taking ownership of our stuff and hopefully instilling confidence with riders that we really do take this serious and we will support them. And that's why we did it. It's pretty straightforward. And it's been really cool seeing that. And I think that it really just takes the stress off of people riding in, because they don't need to be like, hey, I got this, it's been 2 years, but I still have my original warrant, my original receipt. And I'm really like, I hope you'll help me out, because like the warranty is only a year. Yeah. And it's like, I don't care. Yeah, of course we'll take care of you. Like, right. Yes, no problem.
Yeah, it eliminates some of those arguments or those kind of like adversarial customer service relationships where people are like, well, hold on, tell me exactly what you did to this thing. And I don't know if we're going to do it. I mean, yeah.
That was an absolute nightmare. Growing up racing downhill in the era before there were like dedicated downhill bikes, the one that really was tough was racing dual slalom. Like there was no such thing as a slalom bike. We would buy like women's cross country bike hardtails because they were small, and then we'd throw, short stems and stuff on them. These things were not made to do slalom, and they always would break. And, you file the warranty claim through your shop, and sure enough, I'm not going to say what brands they were, but they were like, well, what were you doing? Like, it seems like you were maybe racing, or like, I don't know, this seems like you were abusing it and not using it for what it's made for. So no, we don't honor the warranty. And I had so many of those over the years that I obviously still remember that, have a bit of a grudge because it happened to me. And I don't want to treat people the same way, because that was, especially as a kid, I mean, that summer was over. I don't have a bike anymore because like I didn't have a job. So, a good paying job. I worked at a shop, and you're not getting support on a bike. Like you're kind of done. So anyway, those type of memories are definitely influencing why we want to do the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there things though that like buyers can do to make sure that their dropper post stays working well and they don't need to replace it, or they're not going to run into any trouble?
Yeah, use it. That's like the best thing for it, honestly. Same thing with cars too. Like these cars that are collector cars, they sit and then the gaskets wear out and then they leak. So yeah, using the thing is the number one. And even if that's like, I don't know, let's say you're not getting out riding, but just like cycle it every once in a while. It just keeps the fluids moving and the grease moving around. But like, joking is, I mean, that's not a joke. That is true. But like keeping the wiper seal kind of clean is always a good idea. Like it does its best to shed mud or dust or whatever, sand. But yeah, just kind of making sure there's no grime building up behind it, because there is grease that sometimes will pass through. So keeping the wiper seal clean, and then rebuilding them. Or not rebuilding, but servicing them is always a good idea. So we have all those instructional videos on our website. We don't have like a prescribed amount of hours or anything, because it totally depends on how you're riding and where you're riding. Yeah. But generally, if the thing starts to feel a little sticky, or if you're bored and you want to drink beer and work on your bike, like it's always a great reason to tear the thing apart. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes to service one, so it's super easy.
We wanted to do a competition to see who could do it fast. Like it is like
to service it quick.
Yeah, you can do it very, very.
I think if you had all the tools laid out and the post was already out of the bike, I mean, you could probably do it in like 2 minutes if you're really fast. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, we should do that. See actually who's fastest. But
I will take 15 minutes and everyone else will do it in 5.
You get beer at least.
Yeah, blame it on beer.
15 minutes, that's not bad at all.
No, that's pretty good. I mean, God, compared to like bleeding or like rebuilding a fork or something, that's pretty good. So yeah, so that's the big one. Biggest thing is just, keep an eye on keeping it clean.
Yeah, cool. So I want to ask you both, what are some of the like unique advantages or maybe challenges to working with your spouse?
There's none. What else? Okay, so unique advantage. So I think that we have very complementary skills, and I think that we were talking about this yesterday. I think for better or for worse, I mean, we don't have the communication barrier that you might have in other work environments. Meaning, like we're able to critique each other without holding back because we have, we know each other very well, and we have confidence in our ability to communicate. That you just wouldn't have with another, you wouldn't likely have with another coworker, right? So I think that allowed us to really just like get to the root of an issue, figure it out, and then we move on and fix things and build. So I think that was very good. I think really though, the biggest one is just very complementary skills. Like you should see the type of marketing and sales documents I was making in the early days. And then immediately what happened when Emily got involved, the brand would not be where it's at all. I don't even know if it would be around without Emily. So that was very helpful. And also we think about things very differently. We're constantly bouncing ideas off each other, and she's got a really, really, really good head on her shoulders about customers and brand and how we should be communicating like with our customers. Like that's been huge. And that's something that like I've learned a tremendous amount from her. So I think that's been helpful.
I think also the way we view bikes is very different in a good way, because we kind of represent two different customer buckets. I mean, as Aaron was going through his history, I mean, he's, been in kind of an extreme niche of the sport that I think a lot of people in the bike industry actually come from. And then I come from this kind of more holistic, like bikes are really fun and I really like being out there, but I would never want to race my bike anywhere. I just like enjoy it for different reasons. And I think that our customer base extends, to that core person who, wants to ride every rock garden and go to all the races. And then to people that it's really used as a tool in their life for community and fun. So I think that's also a really good thing that we both brought to the table, because I think a successful bike company needs to honor both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also too, I mean, I think we knew very early on in a relationship, we wanted to work together and create a business of some kind. I think it was very focused around like lifestyle business. We started this, the company's still fully remote, but like we started it that way for a reason, so we could, travel while still working. And obviously the company has morphed far, 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 far beyond that these days. But that was the original intent. And this was kind of a nice way to get started, because it was like the business involves things that we're experts in very different parts of the business, right? So like we were able to come together and do this thing, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what's very interesting is when you start a business like this, I don't think we had anything in mind of what it is today.
No.
We did not start, thinking that we would have a lot of employees, nothing like that. I think it was just based on, we wanted to work together. We saw this opportunity and we were excited about it. And we saw it as a side business, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And for the first, almost 4 years of the business, we were working with contractors, of course, but it was just Aaron and I. And we didn't actually have our first employee. We hired our business partner in 2019. And then we quickly got a first employee after that. But between 2015 and 2019, it was just us on the day-to-day, which you learn a lot about your partner. And it was really fun. I mean, I think we look back on that time and it was so fun to get stuff done and get stuff done really quickly. Now, we're a bigger operation. There's incredible amounts of learning and fun that we have now, but it's just different.
Well, we'll get into challenges here in a second, but like one other thing is, I mean, during that building phase, everything's new and everything's just crazy, right? Like landing backcountry for the first time. I mean, I remember coming home and just like, I think I don't remember what we drank, but we opened something, beer, wine, something like that. And like, that was a huge, huge, huge deal, even though, order like for them to take a chance on us back then, that was like that was in 2016, I think 2017, but that was a massive accomplishment. It felt like, and that relationship's really grown, but like that was crazy. Just like, whoa, this thing we're doing out of our house, like they want to be part of it. This huge, like reputable brand, like it's amazing. Right. So I think, and you're sharing that with your partner and also, we work together too. So it was kind of that dual advantage. I think, challenges, you're living with your business partner. So it was really important for us to work on defining that boundary between work and off time. And what really made it challenging was during COVID, the computer's always sitting there staring at you. It's very easy to just get caught up in stuff. You can totally relate to that, I'm sure. And then also we weren't able to do the things that were like our non-work activities. So like we weren't able to go out and travel together. We weren't able to go out to dinner. We weren't able to do these distractions. So then it very much became work all the time. Okay, hold up. Like we got to create that separation somehow so that we're not so it's not just that we're working all the time. And now that things are starting to clear up with COVID, obviously, like that's made things a lot better. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
Do you guys have any sort of like embargo on work talk? I know I'm really bad about that because, Leah and I work together and it's like, I don't know, it's probably on my mind a lot, like stuff that's happening with work. And so, yeah, like it'll just come up in conversation, like dinner or at night or whatever. And it's like, yeah, do you set boundaries with that where you're like, no, we're not going to talk about that or at least try not to talk about it?
I think what's really funny and about you mentioning, like you and Leah, I was about to say, a lot of this as well. I think we both try to set boundaries, but then the one that sets the boundary, like I know I've asked Aaron, I'm like, okay, sometimes like before Aaron doesn't drink coffee, which is extremely weird to me. But like I'm a coffee addict and I need my coffee in the morning and he'll like be really excited to talk to me about something about work. I'm like, oh man, I can't. And then on the other side of things, like at the end of the day, like our internal clocks are just so much different. So then I'll be like really excited to talk about work at the end of the day. And he'll be like, I'm just trying to, wind down, drink a beer. And I'm like, but let's talk. So I think
it's like opposite schedules.
But I think we always try for the boundaries. And then if we're excited about something, we're going to blow right through them. So
totally. Or if you're upset about something, it's hard to let it go. Like you want to chat through it with someone and you want to chat through it with your spouse who also happens to be who you work with. So like that, yeah, that's been something, I don't know. We've gotten a little better about it, but we're still not great about it. It's very easy to start talking about work.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I don't know if you felt, but especially through COVID, it was like, well, that's really all we had going on. So I think we fell into some habits with that we're slowly coming out of.
Totally.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine it's the same for all couples, even if they're working different places, that's where you spend your day and your time and your energy. And, you got to spend time like catching each other up. Maybe it goes faster because exactly. You don't have to give like the whole backstory about like, this is the thing I'm working on. It's like, exactly what each other is working on. And so you can kind of jump into it and hopefully get past it quickly and then start having fun again.
Totally. Exactly.
Yes.
So Emily, you mentioned, being more sort of focused on the fun side of biking and sort of the enjoyment of that as opposed to like racing and competition. Like aside from the raw product specs where people are, want to know how much travel does this dropper have and, how much air pressure can I put in it and stuff. How important is that versus like color choices? Because I know PNW is kind of unique. You all offer all kinds of colors, and even the dropper posts now, you can get like little bands to put on them to like give them color and stuff. Is that what do buyers think of that? Is that like important to the folks?
Oh my gosh! Well, I would argue that it's extremely important. We aren't robots, as much as I wish that we all were. Yeah. I think it's always a form of personal expression, which is pretty awesome. We kind of stumbled into that without even honestly, I didn't even think. I was just like, yeah, duh, we're going to have colors. That's going to be knit in through all our products as much as we can. I feel like that was a really defining feature for our loam lever, which is an amazingly technical product, but then has this kind of visual aesthetics that are, new, interesting, and weirdly satisfying. I still find that product, I look at the product so often and I'm very satisfied by it, which I guess is like patting my own shoulder, but I like it. And I think that addition of colors is so fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it happened kind of naturally just because of, my background maybe, but it's something we've fully embraced and we see customers really like it. Mm-hmm. I'm always curious. Like, I feel like anyone listening to this podcast, like, let me know what color you want to see on your bike. Because I'm always curious what that question brings up, to be honest, because it's all over the place and you get a lot of things like, electric yellow and you're like, really? Okay. I want to highlight it. All right, we can run with that. But yeah, I think it evokes emotion. We're emotional people. I think we're really emotional about our bikes in a good way. So I love it.
Was that one of those like yin and yang things for you guys? Like, I can just imagine Aaron being like, what? Like colors, our supply chain, this is going to be ridiculous because we're going to get the wrong colors and, end up with a bunch of pink ones and sell out of the orange ones. Like, is that the conversation?
More Andrew, honestly.
It's more Andrew, our other business partner, that's like, is this really necessary?
He's our head of operations, and like I'm actually kind of bad about it because I'm like, yeah, more colors, but yeah.
I would say that you're strongly opinionated. Like, we're seeing a really interesting push in the industry right now to go with these really interesting earth tones and kind of that khaki and all of this stuff that we haven't seen. I mean, primary colors have been in for so long and they'll always be in. But like, there's all these interesting things. I'm like, I really want to try a sage. And I know that sounds really weird, but one of the first, this is like my random geek out on color. One of our first colors, like that cement gray, that was inspired by Toyota Tacomas. So I'm always looking at Toyota Tacoma colors because they actually do some really interesting genre pushing colors. And what you see in Toyota Tacomas, you will see in like Santa Cruz bikes in the next couple of years. It's very interesting. So I'm all about that.
I think we did a survey and that was like the most popular truck or vehicle among mountain bikers. So
I believe it, man. You see them everywhere.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. There's definitely some science going on there. But yeah, sorry. I get really, really stoked.
Well, as an aftermarket brand, I think that's an interesting one actually that we're kind of debating right now is like, what direction do we go with color? Because you are accommodating a lot of people. Like if you're a bike brand, you have to do what's new and cool. Like you have to stay ahead of the trend the best you can. So like we would always travel to like trade shows for ski and snow because they're pretty up on things, running obviously, or just athleisure in general, very much setting the trend in terms of colors. And then the bike industry would embrace things usually 3 years after they were. I'm not. That's not a dig. It is what it is. It's kind of how.
Well, I mean, but we were late on e-commerce and stuff too. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of painting a picture.
Yeah, for sure. So now for an aftermarket brand, like we have customers who have bikes ranging from like early 2000s through the newest stuff. And there's a lot of trends that have happened through that time period. What do we choose? Like we can't have every color. So that's a really interesting one because now that we're seeing a lot more of these, like Emily calls them like less saturated, earthy tones on new bikes, like what percent of the total market of aftermarket buyers are those customers? Is it enough where we want to bring a whole like line that is like a sage green or kind of like a clay blue versus like our safety orange and our like hot pink or purple, like these colors that do really well. Like when is the time where we start transitioning away from those? So anyway, we're trying to figure that out. If you guys know the answer, let us know.
Yeah.
I think the answer is everything. All of them.
All of it.
Right. Somebody is going to want every color. So
there you go.
It's true.
We'll sell tens of them.
Sell 10.
Right.
Men.
Well, so yeah, while we're talking about color and sort of this idea of fashion, PNW, along with actually a number of other brands recently, launched a line of cycling apparel. So why clothing? What was the idea behind getting into that?
Yeah, I mean, it stemmed from customers asking for it, like technical apparel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it started, and we started to kind of chat through with the rest of the team, and came up with some pretty compelling features that we always wanted. Like for instance, with our jacket, we created this waist belt system that it's optional, like you can take it out.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, like if you have these pockets on the back of the jacket and you've got it loaded up with whatever, a spare tube and your phone and a keys, as you're going down the hill, like those things tend to start creeping up your back.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you keep them to stay? Like, how do you make them stay put? So we have this internal belt that does exactly that. So like that was a cool idea for the jacket. Like for instance, on the women's shorts, well, you should talk about that one. I don't wear women's shorts, but
you don't.
There's a lot of complaints.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Our women's shorts. I mean, I think I had so many problems finding them, and there's a lot better options now than there was when I started mountain bike riding. I will caveat that there's a lot of people doing amazing things. And I think you can't mention women's shorts and not mention Shredley, which is an amazing company. Yeah. But just that longing for a short that was understated and didn't give you the thigh gap between your pads and, the hem of the short. And then also pockets. I know we talk about pockets a lot as women, but we just don't get the same attention with our pockets that you men get. So
yeah, there's not enough of them, right? I mean, a lot of men listening don't know this. So yeah, we should be explicit.
They're so tiny. It's like sometimes I can't even fit my hand in it. Like
right.
I can fit one shop block in here and that's it. Not even a whole thing of shop, just one. But the same technology technology in clothing is kind of funny, but we have a cell phone pocket. It fits my phone, which is the size of a house. And it disappears while you ride, because obviously if you put that in a front pocket, like it just is terribly uncomfortable. But we have kind of this cool side pocket. And honestly, I've forgotten that I have my phone on rides, which is, a gift. But yeah, so pockets, the right hem length, those were really important for us in the women's shorts. So I'm very stoked about them.
Yeah. So it was kind of identifying this need that wasn't being met with a number of the clothing items that were out there. Is that kind of where this all came out of?
Yeah. And totally. It's also a fun place for us as a brand to kind of push the limits of what do our customers want from us, and also be able to experiment with something that's not hard goods. So that's a whole new learning experience for us. And then also it gives us a great ability to play with colors and fabrics and all of these things. So it checked a lot of boxes for us and riders too. Yeah.
Yeah. Is the manufacturing and the lead times, is that easier? Because again, it's it was weird because in the last year or two, it's every bike brand came out with clothing as well. And, it kind of seemed like maybe it was because they couldn't get bikes. And so is clothing easier to manufacture, or how does that work?
I mean, weirdly enough, the lead times so I guess to start off, I don't know. I don't know if that's what influenced these other brands. With our lead times on hard goods going the direction that they did, apparel always seemed ridiculous because, you're talking 9 months, but that's sure better than 500 days. So, I mean, I guess that was a side benefit. It definitely, I don't think we were really even thinking about it at the time, but then all of a sudden we're like, oh wait, we're going to get these way before our new pedals. That's cool. So yeah, that was helpful. And for some reason, it just was not affected in the same way. The supply chain was not affected in the same way. I'm going to guess probably when you're making fabric, it's not the same as mining raw ore for,
right.
You know what I mean? I think that's probably why it's more available, or it was during this whole time. So that's part of it. But anyway, it definitely lead times were helpful. Why a ton of other brands jumped in is an interesting one. I think it's going to create a situation where the market will shake out over the next probably 18 months of who's going to continue with apparel programs versus not. We see that a lot. Like you see with like gravel bikes blowing up, a ton of brands start popping up out of nowhere. And then it kind of shakes out to who's going to kind of continuously stay through,
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'm curious to know too, a little bit about, your pricing. Obviously inflation is a thing right now, and it seems like you guys have kept prices like on dropper posts in particular pretty steady throughout the years. How are you able to do that? How do you keep the prices so low and continue to keep them low?
Yeah, I was doing a little research the other day. So yeah, I mean, we're up 13% inflation since 2019. Our shipping costs have gone up, like almost 30 to 50%, depending on what type of shipping we're talking. Our product costs have also increased a lot, numerous times. We kept getting, kind of incremental jumps. So we did our best to absorb what we could because we wanted to maintain that kind of promise to customers that like we're doing everything we can to support them. We did recently implement some price increases just on a few products, not everything. We had no choice. We had to. So yeah, I think that's a very conscious decision to do, again, what we feel is best for our customers. And I know that I'm sure my business professors are cringing if they were to hear that, but that's a big part of it. And I think that for us, like we're hoping that is a very clear message to our riders that we're very serious about what we say and that we are willing to, sacrifice a bit of margin in exchange for that. But like I said, I mean, we did raise a few recently. Like the more sensitive things like grips went up a bit just because like our cost to ship those is very high, and we had to basically absorb a bit of that. And then a few droppers, we were pretty tight on margin too, so we bumped those up.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're still though way less than most of the other brands that are selling dropper posts. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm curious, is that because your suppliers or
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the relationships with suppliers. I mean, we're getting really, really strong pricing, just based on these relationships of buying, hundreds of thousands of things. When I was speccing bikes, like obviously we're not buying that many now, but like having that kind of historical relationship, and also they know that I know what this stuff can cost at a big brand. So like I'm gonna, I'm not gonna just bend over and pay 50% more just cause. So that's helpful for sure. The other part's our business model. The fact that we don't sell through distributors, that is immediately a 20 to 30% savings to the customer. We just pass that directly on. And then the other part is, we're really selective with what type of marketing and advertising we do. Anything we do, like we need a trackable return on it so that we can make sure we're being efficient and again, pass the savings on to our customer. Yeah. And so that's why being digitally native is such a strong asset for us, is that exact reason. Like if we were to go sponsor, I don't know, like big World Cup race teams, that's sort of a question mark as to what your return is on that investment. There's a million examples out there. Print ads are always a tough one to swallow. They have their place, but it's tough because it's like, okay, I paid X thousands of dollars for this ad. I have no idea if I'm going to get a return on that. Like it's kind of tough to tell. Right. You can kind of assume that like over your total marketing spend, like sure, sales are going up, but like you can't say for sure it's because one person saw one ad. So that's always been a tough pill for us to swallow. So I think those are the big reasons why we're able to have such competitive pricing for the quality that we have. Like we're not the cheapest brand, but we're definitely not the most expensive one, especially for the quality. Yeah,
definitely. So, looking ahead, what's the vision? What's the vision for the future of PNW?
Yeah, we have a very busy schedule ahead of us. So we're continuing to launch a lot of products. I think we have another, 10 or so to come out this year.
Oh, wow.
So we've already launched 8 this year, something like that. 6. Yeah, and we have 2 more coming very soon. So anyway, we've got a pretty packed schedule there. Our big one is expanding internationally in a more, I guess you could say like more meaningful way. Like technically we will we ship overseas, to, for instance, into like the UK and mainland Europe. However, super expensive. I'm amazed. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for taking those extra costs just to get our stuff. But like, we need to have a local presence there. So we're getting the UK ramped up first, and then mainland Europe, likely out of Germany. Okay. And just, aside from that, like, we're constantly trying to push the envelope for how we can take care of our customers best. And I sincerely mean that. Like, that really is the most enjoyable part of this. There's a lot of, there's a million different careers out there that we could have jumped into, but like, the fact that we can really stoke out people and they're appreciative of it, it means a lot. So that's something that we really want to continue doing. And we have a lot of ideas for that. You're probably looking for like, we're looking to achieve, 45% CAGR annualized growth. But like, we have growth targets and all that, but it's around those three things. I guess.
Yeah. What about for you, Emily? Like, what are you excited about for the future of PNW and to do more of, or maybe less of?
Oh yeah, more of and less of. I'm really excited about the digital landscape right now. It's changing really fast, which means we're going to have to adapt. So we're going to just have another fun amount of learning to do. And what's great is because of the bike industry, we can kind of take cues from, Aaron mentioned it earlier, but like Glossier, the makeup company. And I know that sounds weird to say that a makeup company is inspiring a bike company. But there's actually similarities there. A lot of makeup was one of the hardest things to get people to adapt to online early in the days of early e-commerce, because it's something you want to try, something you're used to going into a store to look at color tests, all of that. It's very similar to how people feel about bikes. They want to go in, they want to see it, they want to make sure it works with their bike, etc. So it's definitely something that I've taken a lot of cues from, which is probably a bit horrifying for some of your viewers, maybe. But yeah, so I think just watching and learning and looking at what's happening. I mean, digital changes so quickly. I mean, we're already seeing a mass change to how people want to be advertised to. Of course, with Facebook changing, or Meta changing a lot of what they're doing because they have to. Because of Apple. But there's just a lot of interesting things. And then pushing that line of how we can create community in a digital space, and then having that translate to, a real space. I think that's always one of the goals that we have. So lots of exciting stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Well, it's awesome to follow the brand and to see how you are able to kind of think outside of the industry and take these best practices and things and apply it. And clearly it's working. People love the brand and love the product. So yeah, very cool to see. Well, thank you both for taking the time to chat with me today. It was really great. And looking forward to see what else is coming from PNW.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for thinking of us. And yeah, it was fun talking shop.
Yeah. Well, you can find out more about the PNW brand at pnwcomponents.com, and we'll have that link for you in the show notes. That's all we've got this week. We'll talk to you again next week.